what do I do with kids to optimize health and athleticism?
I love that question because I have four grandkids now. The idea is a vertical alignment, which means to me K through 12, where we are going to gamify training. We are going to train everybody like athletes. And there will be people who say, well, my kid's probably just going to play in the band, so he doesn't have to get good at sprinting and lifting and bouncing and jumping and throwing. And I would say, no, your kid needs this more than anybody.
Welcome to the Winning Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Schwartzman. I'm a family man, a coach, a wannabe athlete. After earning 3 master's degrees and countless certifications, I've decided that podcasting is how I'm going to continue my education in all things wellness, longevity, and performance. Join me to learn along.
In the last handful of years, I think just in my own personal experience, I think that the work that you're doing is saving a lot of athletes, and so I had to invite you on and try to capture some more of that knowledge. Uh,
Yeah, well, that inspires me. That's uh I don't think it was really meant to be that in the early onset. I think I was just trying to find better ways to win and make it more fun doing it. Uh,
yeah,
but but as our data sample has increased so much, with so many coaches doing it and reporting to me and testimonials and things, I'm starting to think that maybe the most important thing is not the, winning and having fun, but just keeping kids from getting injured.
yeah. I look back at some of my early programming in the weight room, and I probably do about half as much now with my athletes as I started out. I just didn't know.
Right.
I wanted to do the best for them. I got excited about working their butts off, and in retrospect, it was more is less sometimes. Um,
Yes. And it's weird that the biggest offenders are at the highest levels. Like, like I don't know if you saw the clip from Colorado, just idiots, Colorado football, Kansas State football. I mean, it's just everywhere where people are just they really can't do enough. Like they want to do more, 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 and
yeah,
they really think that they're just the harder they work, the better they get,
yeah,
which is weird because it's not true.
yeah. I was really excited when I first came across your material because I thought he's and I was a hypocrite because in the weight room I was not feeding the cats, but with speed work I was, without knowing it, I was sort of this of the feed the cats mentality, um, because my speed training, my education there. I had a couple of I was kind of looking forward to speaking to you. I had a couple of like guiding thoughts going into it as a younger coach. One was, are you familiar with Mark Ripito, coach?
For sure, I know the name,
So
but I
so
don't know him well. No.
he authored some books, and he's predominantly more in the weight room with his teachings, but he wrote a book, Starting Strength and Practical Programming. And in it, he talks about speed being rather genetic and being one of the less trainable factors versus endurance or strength or hypertrophy. So that was one of the first books I picked up. And so I just sort of ran, that just helped, form my goggles, my perspective is that, oh, speed's not the most trainable thing. I'm not going to run sprints until people throw up. And then I was kind of a hypocrite in the weight room. I thought, well, let's just do as much as we possibly can without it just being overtly ridiculous. But yeah, so I had Mark Ripito, and then I worked with the Rams and Coach Rock Golkson. I think he would have worn a Feed the Cats t-shirt, if the timing lined up. Is that he liked to get his guys fast, but he would talk about, in the football world, they talk about not even putting your hands on your hips to show you're tired on the sideline. And he would tell me, he's like, I don't care what they do on the sideline. What matters is what they do in the game.
Yeah, that was a real old school thing. I have my mom's, my dad was a basketball coach. My mom's three brothers all played college football and two of them coached. And the oldest of the three, he was a head football coach in the late 50s. And that body language thing was really huge among coaches of that time. And it's interesting that that body language thing really was a product of World War II, where they
Okay.
taught soldiers to stand like men. And not only that, I don't know if I know you don't remember this, but in the early '60s with the NASA astronauts, they were taught how to put their hands on their waist. Like this looks feminine and this looks manly, and so it's just amazing how many threads of stuff that of people we never met
Yeah.
are still lodged in our brains because that's how we were brought up.
So did the World War II veterans come home and start coaching? And they said we don't put our hands on our hips. Shows weakness.
I Yes,
Yeah.
and I talk about this a lot that high school sports were a thing before World War II, but after World War II they exploded.
Okay.
And I think it's an interesting historical uh, some significance here that that men that came home from World War II, first of all, felt like they were winners, which I don't know if we felt like that in any war since.
Yeah.
But the other thing was when groups of men go through hard things, they bond closer than they'll ever bond in anything ever in their life. Almost to a problem where like soldiers come home and they cannot find the same feeling with a family and like neighbors.
Yeah.
They miss the camaraderie of war. And so in their ideas, it's like, I want my boys going through that. I want them to become men going through hard things and bonding together with a team without having bullets fly by them. It's like war without the bullets.
Yeah.
And and if you think about it, that's probably why we even made sports like baseball hard. Like baseball players were worked hard
Yeah.
for no reason except for
Yeah.
we're going to do hard things. And there's football coaches making 6 million a year. I make fun of Luke Fickle at Wisconsin. There's a clip of him talking to his team, and they're all like on one knee, yes sir, no sir, all that, military stuff. And he's saying, I know what we just did will not make us better players, but I believe it'll make us a better team. I don't know what in the hell they just did, but it
Yeah.
was probably some Navy SEAL inspired toughness thing. And of course, it has not made them winners at Wisconsin. They're abject failures there. They're under 500, and any Big Ten team that's under 500 because they play like four games where they're favored by 30 points. So if you're under 500 in the Big Ten, you suck. And they have sucked. And that's, I say this all the time, that everybody points to like, hey, this toughness stuff wins. And they point to the teams that win. And it's that survivor bias thing, that somehow we want to focus on the winners and neglect looking at the losers. And if you look at the losers in sports, you will find that they may have worked twice as hard or 1.5 as hard
Yeah.
as the winners. Because what have we been taught to do all of our lives? If we lose, what do we do the next week?
Get back to work. Double up.
Double down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is the source of a losing streak, usually. But the one time when you double down and it works, you celebrate it and write about
Mhm.
it and all that stuff, and it's in the newspaper. And so we think that's how you do it. But there's a downward spiral that happens to most teams that lose, and it's because they doubled down on hard work.
Yeah. Um, that was my experience working with football for the first several years. Not with Coach Rod Gullickson at the Rams, but after that in our collegiate area. And again, I had my own guilty areas as well. But
We all do.
it just seemed like we worked so hard and then we just could not perform. It just we were just missing whatever it is. We were missing it.
And
But
I think that's where the whole idea of time sprints come in. Um, that I don't think a lot of coaches understood what they were doing to their kids because there was no measurement of, am I improving them or destroying them? First of all, I don't think it's even in people's heads that we could destroy athletes. That we could be the reason why athletes get hurt and underperform. I mean, coaches just think that we're all about all the good things, all the good adaptations that happen. And I don't think we see ourselves in the mirror very well. And then, of course, the head coach always gets just universal support from his staff because that's our structure. I mean, you as an S&C guy, not going to go in after your coach loses three in a row and say, Coach, we need to talk about your practices. That ain't going to happen. The offensive coordinator ain't going to go in like that, or else he's not going to be the OC for very long. It's just so. So when we start timing sprints twice a week, we get this barometer of our team speed. And if we're slow, we look ourselves in the mirror and say, what are we doing? If we're fast, we celebrate and we like that. And then we find out that there's a direct link between speed and health.
yeah. So
That if you are the fastest you've ever been on the first day of practice, and then you get progressively slower for the rest of the year, you are also getting progressively more injury prone. And I think that's a huge thing. I've come to I really believe right now that a guy that's faster than he's ever been is healthier than he's ever been. And somebody that's mentally alert, has a bounce in their step, is faster than they were on day one of the season, and really loves practice is almost bulletproof.
yeah.
On the other side, the reverse of that is that if somebody is not mentally alert because they don't get enough sleep and they're beat up from the day before, the steak gets burned every day, and then you come back and fight through the grind and all that stuff. Those guys are much more susceptible to injury. And coach after coach after coach have reported back just incredible, like we didn't have a concussion in our whole high school program this year. In the first game, the other team had 11 cramps and we had none. But yet they did conditioning and we didn't. Think about that one. Like what? So what is it? They come back like the Wisconsin River Falls coach, Matt Walker, who just got the Drake job. They were national champs D3, and they adopted sprint-based football this 1 year ago, and it was because of injuries. Like, are we doing everything we can to prevent injuries? We have arguably the best D3 quarterback in the nation, and he missed a handful of games his junior year. Are we doing everything to keep him healthy? And the OC said no. They said we need to listen to this podcast with Garrett Muller and Tony Holler, and they started the same 22 guys in their championship game as they did in game one,
Yeah.
which should give us chills, right?
That doesn't happen.
It could happen in an extremely lucky won the lottery situation. But if you change something from an injury plagued season to a perfect injury elimination season, we need to say, what did we do different? Like maybe we're onto something. And then for me, hearing from all these different coaches, I mean, like the same thing. Garrett Moeller, 55-5, feeding the cats. Stewartville, Minnesota. Garrett has around 60 players, and they're 55-5 in their last 60 games. They had a 30-game winning streak, two state championships. And he went through and took the number of players times the total number of games, and it was like 3,600. And they found out that injuries cause somebody to miss a practice or a game 8 times out of a potential 3,600 games missed. 8 practices or games missed. And you say, well, what are you doing to the guys? And say, well, we don't do conditioning. We sprint twice a week. Matter of fact, we got almost 1 mile an hour faster in season, both the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
We Our practices are short. Shorter practices have fewer collisions. Our players, because of the way we practice and the way we train, love it. Do they lift? Of course they lift. But I think they lift in a way that you can imagine. Like they're not going to crush them on Monday, knowing that we have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday where we want to get better. So all of this information keeps, like coming back to me. And maybe I don't hear the people who tried this stuff and everybody got hurt, but I think I would.
Yeah.
I think I'm hearing straight stuff. So we're on to something, and it goes against the religion that we've all been brought up in.
Yeah. So I think a whole bunch of green lights. We're seeing some awesome things at the college level. I think it'd also be fair if you want to add it to the docket. Maryville men's two won their first conference ever last year with a feed the cats mentality. They changed up. They dropped volumes. They went for quality over quantity, and it paid off. Um, what would you do? I believe you have a chemistry background.
Yeah.
What's the chemical formula for raising a child to be fast? Now I have a 6 and a 7-year-old at home, and I also coach a youth programming over the summer. What do I do with kids to optimize health and athleticism?
I love that question because I have 4 grandkids now, and and you know
Nice.
things like that change your life. Like you start seeing things a little differently, and that's why right now PE might be my most, for the last 2 or 3 years, it's been football. That's been my most interesting pursuit. Uh, and now I think it's physical education is
Yeah,
because I just put out a podcast on the Feed the Cats podcast. I think it was 3 podcasts ago where we are implementing a Feed the Cats K through 12 in Augusta, Georgia, at Augusta.
really.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
So
nice.
so I
Yeah,
see the smile, and
yeah,
you're thinking that's kind of what I would like my kids to grow up in, right? So
yeah.
the idea is a vertical alignment, which means to me K through 12, where we are going to gamify training. We are going to train everybody like athletes. And there will be people who say, well, my kid's probably just going to play in the band, so he doesn't have to get good at sprinting and lifting and bouncing and jumping and throwing. And I would say, no, your kid needs this more than anybody. Because to be a healthy human, I think, is basically to be as athletic as you can be. And
Yeah.
to be athletic to me is to be fit. Yeah, I mean that's what it is. So it's not been done yet, but the idea is that we are, the present physical fitness test, you
Oh
know,
yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah,
Presidential fitness tests for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
I think they measure 6 things, and I don't like 5 of them. The only one I like is the shuttle run. They do not have a sprint. They're, a mile is too far to test endurance, and it sucks. So they have sit-ups and the sit and reach, dumb things. But anyway, I can remember I was tested in September of my 7th grade year. I think I still have the little report card thing. I remember I couldn't do a pull-up because I was long-armed, a long-armed, skinny kid that was going to be a basketball player. And and then the kids with alligator arms could do like 100, pull-ups, it's just different, and so the idea is that we are going to have better tests. How high do you jump? How far do you jump? How fast do you run? RSI, using OVR jump.
Yeah.
I mean, like you say, no, wait, for 5-year-olds? Yes. I mean, we are going to expose them to all this stuff. And then add in some, I say that testing is training and training is testing. So, so instead of doing it for 1 week, we are going to not do everything every day, but we are going to be consistent all year in a consistent pursuit of athleticism. And we're going to record, rank, and publish. My son is a PE teacher in Edwardsville at a middle school. A couple great stories. One is they started a feed the cats option in PE. They call it, I think their colors are orange and blue, so it's the orange group. And then the blue group is more couch to 5K, walk, jog laps. Every other day you're playing games, volleyball, archery, whatever the dumb things they do. And in my opinion, playing games, PE should not be recess, in my opinion. PE should be athletic training that's joyful. But in Alex's group, they're doing vertical jump, horizontal jump. They're timing with free lap, and the school will not let them post all numbers. The principal said, let's just post the top 40. In my 26 years of record, rank, and publish, not one parent has ever objected to their kid being publicly humiliated by being like low on the rankings.
Yeah.
It's like, it's sports, it's no big deal. I mean, like, not one time. But I understand the sensitivity in this, like you can't read a grade out loud type of school, which I think is BS too. I think we should own our performances and we should not laugh at kids that fail, but you have to own it. So all those things are going on. Great story. Kid breaks into the top 40, so he comes early to school the next day to see the new rankings. And
Oh yeah.
my son didn't have the rankings up yet. And he goes, Mr. Holler, uh, are you not going to put up the rankings?
Yeah.
So somebody breaks into the top 40 and they're that excited about just seeing their name in print. And
Yeah.
then we can do wristbands for miles per hour. We can do dog tags. We can do Garrett Muller for truck stick now is doing. Everybody has a backpack now. It's a weird, like my wife and I, not one time ever wore a backpack or had a water bottle in all of our schooling. But every kid now has to have that for survival or something. So now there's these backpack cards or whatever you clip onto your backpack, and you're proudly an 800 in the truck stick or whatever. So all those things just gamifies physical education to make it the best part of a kid's day, which is the key to all classes. When I taught chemistry, you asked chemistry, I said chemistry is going to be your favorite class, and I'm going to be your favorite teacher. And so if I had 3 days of boring crap, I had to apologize and promise them something great on Friday. Like, hey, we'll blow something up on Friday. I promise. We'll do something
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So they knew that I cared about them loving the material, and I think that's the whole key to education. Uh, you love your work, and that makes you a good worker. You could not be a good worker if you didn't love what you do. I mean, you just
Sure.
can't.
Yeah.
You just can't. You have to find joy somehow. The other great story about that, they do the pacer test. You know what I'm talking
Yes.
about?
Yes, I do.
Endurance.
Yes.
My son calls it the worst day of a teacher's life and the worst day of a student's life. And, uh, and so they did it, and it was awful, like always. And then they posted top numbers from every class. On the makeup day the next week, everyone wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
I think that's a complaint people have about Feed the Cats, is it soft, woke, trophy for everybody? Uh, oh, it's fine if you lose. No, it's a cutthroat competition, is what Feed the Cats is, where we find joy in competing, just like we would playing a game, where it's an online game or a board game or poker or whatever.
Yeah.
We like poker because we win and lose, and
Yeah.
that's fun. And so the whole idea that kids will do hard things if you have not the correct incentives. I'm not talking, I don't like carrot and stick stuff, but it's gamified, and you're not playing for meaningless plastic chips.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like poker playing for money. I don't like playing poker for plastic chips. It doesn't stir my blood. But if there's fives and tens and twenties out there, all of a sudden it is the greatest game in the world. So that's kind of the way I see training. And getting back to your young kids, it's never too early to start them sprinting. Uh, Everybody needs to get an OVR for 100 or 529 bucks, and go ahead and measure your kids up the door frame or whatever, like we always do, how tall you were last year, this year, but also write down their times, and they will see an excitement as those times get better. Matter of fact, even a 5 or 6 year old will start to learn what their fastest time was.
Yeah. I think I'm feeding the cats at home. I've got a spreadsheet for my two kids. And we've got broad jumps, we've got pull-ups, we have they get on the assault bike and just do the arms because they're not tall enough to do both items. And I've got a rower where we do like these short rows, with short times. But when I say, hey, I don't say who wants to go exercise because I was getting mixed signals. I say, who wants to go set a record? And they jump off the couch and they're like, let's go do this. And sometimes they set, they're young, they're growing, they're improving, but sometimes they just set one record and they're done. And sometimes they set a record on three different things.
And you
Um,
never force it. You never
no,
force it, and you've also given them a choice.
yeah,
Now, now you can manipulate the hell out of those kids. Um, like,
sure.
if you want your kid to clean his room and you don't want it to take the entire day, say, clean your room and I'm going to time you. Are you
Yeah,
ready? Go. And they will go crazy. So, so it is a manipulation. You're kind of gamifying a job.
yeah, yeah. And then to talk about um, maybe detraining or interference effect. I guess I'm curious what you like to call it. But when I was a kid, I don't know why. Maybe it was watching Arnold and Stallone movies on TV, but I was just into training when I was young. It just seemed cool, and I like running a mile in school. That presidential fitness test, I won it from second grade to eighth grade. I was number one in the mile. But when it's time to run sprints or play sports, I was always okay. And but I won the mile, but I wasn't good at pretty much everything else. And so it took me well, I never really figured that out until it was too late. I was an okay athlete through high school. But in high school I like to train. I'd go to the YMCA before school to lift. I'd have a sport practice after school, and a lot of times at night I'd go for a long run. And now I just think about how I was chasing two rabbits.
Well, that's why you went into your job. You were really good at strength and conditioning, you know?
Yeah.
So I said this the other day in a podcast with Tony Villani, and I probably hurt some feelings. He said, what are the two biggest problems with strength and conditioning? I said, number one is strength, number two is conditioning. It's kind of a joke, but if you only lift, that will actually detrain a lot of movements. Only lifting is not a positive. Um, if you only lift and then go out and seek fatigue, like that's what I think of as conditioning. You'll never get faster. What are they missing? They're missing that thing. And many people have exactly your experience. Their training did not make them faster. I think the only two ways we catch fire is by success or progress. Success is, if you would have gone out in eighth grade and you were the fastest kid in your school and you won a gold medal. And then you made the track team and you were the county champ, and that's success. Progress is where we record, rank, and publish. And you start off running 13.8 miles an hour as a sixth grader. And as a seventh grader, you're running 15.5. And at the end of that year, you run 16.2. And you can see your ceiling is going up. And I think that the slowest kids in a speed group will get just as much affirmation as the fastest kids because they see progress. Matter of fact, I think they see more progress. If you
Yeah.
have some phenom, like I coach Marcellus Moore, which he's basically the fastest guy in the country, and now he's the fourth fastest guy in the US, and he's only 23. He was a phenom when I met him, and I think I did a great job with him as a coach. He loved it. He loved training. He had a lot of success, but his actual improvement, I think that if you're close to your ceiling, your improvement is in, millimeters, like it's
Yes.
small.
Yeah. Diminished returns.
Yes. And then
Yeah.
compare him with a guy named Tommy Harris. They came into school. He never played a sport in his life. He played in the band. He went from running like 16 miles an hour to 23 in 4 years.
That has to feel like flying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now obviously he must have had some genetic capabilities that not every slow kid is going to improve by 7 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But my point being, a slow kid has so much more room to improve that I think when people argue, hey, this isn't just a sprint class, well, I think sprinting is the most extreme human movement that we can think of. I mean, I don't know anything else that we ever do that's more than 10 meters a second, for the entire body, like,
Yeah.
gee, that's an incredible thing to sprint. And I think that because it's the most extreme, that it kind of trains all movements. And that's why I say speed's the tide that lifts all boats. So if you wanted to make your kids the best athletes they could be, you train extreme movement, whether it's velocity and speed, the amount of weight they lift, how high they jump, how far they jump. And one of the things in Feed the Cats is we perform in practice. Instead of going for 3 hours in third gear, we go for an hour and a half in fifth gear. Instead of no recovery times in practice, we give recovery times because we want performative. Performative is a bad word these days because so much of politics is performative. But we want to perform in everything we do because that's what we're practicing to do. And I don't know how it ever got started that we were just going to bury kids in the grind and that they were somehow going to improve their performance. But that's what we grew up with.
Yeah. I I liked your quality over quantity, that mindset. Something else I came across.
But
No,
Mitch, that's not new, right?
yeah,
I mean, 100 years ago, coaches were saying quality over the way you practice is the way you play. Those same coaches, though, burnt the steak every day. So what we say and what we do are sometimes two different things. But when we talk about quality over quantity, that should not be revolutionary. Of course, that's what we do. but we have to lose our religion to do that, which is hard.
So we, if we take that young child, we feed the cat up through their maybe their athletic peak, their athletic career. Maybe they get a couple of years in the NFL. They go to the Olympics. They do something fantastic and amazing, and then around low, late 20s, early 30s, they're done competing. Their progress, their progress has ended. Their success has peaked. They have their gold medal from the Olympics or the NFL championship ring. Does Feed the Cats have a place in long-term health and wellness? Because we know that health and wellness is important to like build a base for performance. But what about when your performance becomes the secondary um, goal?
I think it absolutely does. I've trained a 72-year-old woman that got second in the world in the 200. She ran 39 seconds in the 200. You probably know people your age that could not run a 39 in the 200, let alone a 72-year-old woman. I've trained a 45-year-old, and I've written about it in Australia, who at the age of 45 was running, like sub 25 in the 200 for a girl, which is, she could make some college teams, I mean, like, she's good.
Yeah,
And the great thing is, she's just shattered every record from her youth because they just ran her to death. They literally trained her and it detrained her. I'm
for
like,
sure.
how
Yeah.
sad is that to put in all this work and have a coach being paid and you get worse because of that training. So I'm 67 and this morning I went and ran them and I'm only 10 months out of quad surgery. I snapped a quad tendon, which is like choose any other tendon to snap. The
Yeah.
quad tendon is the worst, especially when you're 66. But thank God I'd run 1,025 consecutive days and, kept track of it, obviously. The mileage, the time, every day. It was a streak, it was a streak of almost 3 years. And, um, and because of that, 10 months after surgery, I'm running a mile every day, which the doctor didn't. He said the possibility of my running again was 50-50 and that only God knows. He actually said only God knows. And I'm like, that's bullshit, and but I think I'm an athlete, and so I did my pushes, my pulls, my squats, and I did some isos. As you know, tendon repair and tendon strength has a
Yes.
lot to do with isometrics. It's putting mild stress on tendons for long periods of time is really good for tendons. So I did those things and I ran a mile on the treadmill. Now, I sometimes call distance running a bad habit. It's only happened for about 50 years now. This is a crazy story. In the mid 70s, Chicago Marathon, the first Chicago Marathon had 4,200 people. 4,200 people, and only 2,100 finished. Only half the people finished that signed up for it. Now you got to pay $400 and enroll in a lottery to be one of the 40,000 who get to run. That's all happened in the last 50 years. Nike was behind that. Nike wasn't a thing bef before the mid 70s. Marathons weren't a thing. The greatest athletes in the world were boxers. And guess what we saw them doing all the time?
Road work.
Road work. That and jumping rope. Jumping rope did not catch on, which it should have. Road work caught on. So what was I doing as a seventh grade basketball player? After practice, all summer long, I'd go out and run 2 miles.
Yeah.
And that was detraining my jumping ability and my sprint ability. So getting back to this, I say if you never slow down, you never grow old. And I wish I could go back, to where I was when I was done athletically and said I'm never going to slow down. We're going
Yeah.
to slow down, but I just think that doing the atomic speed workout would be a lot more fun than a 3 mile run. So I'm a huge believer. I consulted with Saquon Barkley uh, 11 days before he signed with the Eagles. And he said he liked my stuff. What should I add to my workouts? And I said, you're gonna hate my answer. And he goes, what is it? Like I said, well, you're doing too much. I've seen the damn videos. I know they're showing us your highlight videos, but you don't need to squat an extra 100 pounds. You don't need to do any more sprints up sand dunes and things like that. He said, so coach, maybe instead of doing 20 hundreds, maybe I should do five. And I said, no, don't do any hundreds. And I'll never forget, he said, I feel like I've been brainwashed. I joined the club, man. We all have.
Yeah.
We've all been brainwashed. And he says, so short sprints? I go, yeah. I know, how do I learn how to train? I said, it's not that hard. You just time yourself in short sprints, maybe do some speed drills to warm up. Hey, here's Brian Kula's number. He works with McCaffrey. So Saquon got together with Brian Kula. Brian taught him the Bounce Fire series, which is basically like a warm up, and got him sprinting. And Saquon continued doing it. And I thought he looked younger and leaner and faster in that year with the Eagles than I'd ever seen him. So I think it's a fountain of youth if you train the right way.
Yeah. We've got I've got a over here at the university, there's a guy who's 71 years old, and he was ripping out like 117 400s the other day. And he puts his spikes on, hits it, takes his spikes off, tennis shoes back on, walks around for several minutes and puts them back on. And I thought like I'm glad that I'm getting out on the track right now because if I wasn't doing this regularly or semi-regularly, I'd be getting my butt kicked by somebody twice my age. So,
Yeah, you saw that 81-year-old
yes,
that ran a 29-second 200.
yeah,
And I said there's probably 50% of all 30-year-olds could not do that. And I was being nice. I'd say 90% of all 30-year-olds.
yeah,
I mean, I'd say half of any high school cross country team cannot break 29 in the 200, cannot break 30 in the 200. So, those things should be inspiring, but those aren't the things that we consume. We consume stuff about marathons and 5Ks. It's endurance and it's bodybuilding type stuff. And there's a place for all those things. I'm not telling you not to run. It's just sad that we ever give up on running fast.
yeah. That being said, you're doing more distance in your post surgery era. Were you doing, and you listed a pretty good streak that you got going. Is that how many days?
My streak was 1025,
Yeah,
1,025 days. And then literally I tripped coming off of a step. And like the two things popped in my head before I hit the ground. Um, and it was I just snapped my quad tendon and my streak is over. A
yeah,
streak becomes a part of you kind of.
hmm
It's like something you're really proud of. Nobody else cares. But
yeah,
to me, it was like, what are you proud of? Well, I've run 1,025 consecutive days. So that was over. So now, I started off by just trying to walk around the block, limp around the block, and then I try to walk faster and all that kind of stuff. And eventually, I think I ran my first mile about 6 months in. Um, but before I was doing that, I was not sprinting. One of the problems when you don't sprint for like 30 years is you'll go out and just go through the motions of the speed drills and you'll feel like you got hit by a car. You know, like
yeah,
like your body is so uh it's so foreign to your body to go out and do those things that I don't care how much you've lifted. I've lifted all my life. Doing things you've not done makes you sore, which makes it hard to do it the next day and the next day. And that's why I came up with the atomic speed workout. as a way to do something as small as possible. And people who's just starting the atomic speed workout, I tell them go through the motions of the speed drills, go through the motions of time yourself in 2 sprints. And we're not talking about 400-meter sprints. We're talking about like a 30 into a 10. And just get some marks. Your number one goal when you start something like that is that you can do it the next day. That's the number one goal. And that comes from atomic habits where uh, if you want to run a marathon, you start off by running around the block.
Okay,
You,
I had not heard that's why you call it. Is that we call it the atomic warm up for that purpose or
yeah, the
workout?
atomic speed workout came
Before.
from me reading Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh, okay, yes, read the book. Okay,
And it's
great.
it's it's
Yep.
great, isn't it? Don't you wish
Yes.
every kid could read that in
Yeah.
school
Yeah.
instead of Grapes of Wrath or something?
What I love from that book? I don't remember the specific piece of it, brain anatomy, but he gives an anecdote about a guy with amnesia, and he describes why every generation dislikes the next generation's music. And I love that bit out of the book. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't understand that because music's so damn bad these days.
Um, whether it was for your rehab, or for your athletes, looking at maybe some of the popularization of backwards walking and backwards work, what's your thoughts on that?
I started doing it probably 25 years ago. Um, I remember when I hurt my shoulder as a quarterback, my coach told me, he wanted me throwing left-handed. That somehow there's this crossover thing, and then I became friends with Tom Petronoff, a world record holder in the um, in the javelin, a world record holder. I mean, this guy's you know amazing, and he said he used to throw left and right. That there's weird things that we learn by doing things our body's not used to, and there's crossovers, and so I had the idea that we every day we're going to sprint backwards too. And I
Yeah.
don't know why I didn't include a backward sprint into my 10 speed drills. I think if I redid it, maybe I would. Um,
Yeah.
but we do them in our X Factor work. We do usually 2 speed days and 2 X Factor days. X Factor is just exercises. Um, but one of the things we will do is we'll sprint backwards. I
Yeah.
call it butt kick and reach. So we're not like scooting our feet. We're trying to pick up our feet like we do when we sprint,
Yes.
except for we're going backwards.
Yes.
And I also you get these little tidbits like uh, I asked the Jamaican sprint coach in 2008, what are you guys doing to prevent hamstring problems? And he said retro runs uphill. I'm like, I've never heard of that before. But
Yeah.
like we do retro runs, we do backward sprinting, and and so and so I just kind of and then one other thing. This is a weird thing. I had this random coach tell me one time. He said, "Have you ever noticed that the defensive cornerbacks never have hamstring problems in
Oh,
football?"
okay.
I'm like, "Well, I guess you're right." I go, "What can we learn from that?" He said, "Retro running,
You think maybe like that eccentric load as you're heading back?
maybe,
Yeah. Okay.
maybe."
Okay. Yeah.
But this is how like creative people like they hear something and remember it type of stuff. And well, throw in one other thing. I was fortunate enough to get to do a podcast with Ben Patrick,
Yes.
knees over toes guy.
Yes.
One of the most interesting humans. And I just love Ben, and
Yeah.
he's so kind and nice to me, and he's such a free thinker. And um, I told him, what do I need to be doing in my rehab? And he said, oh, for sure, reverse sled pulls.
Yeah. I don't know him personally, but I'm a big fan of his work. Yeah.
Reverse sled pulls. That's the same idea, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so especially, when I think of a reverse sled pull, I think there's no downside to that. There's no
Yeah.
cost.
Yeah.
I mean, so why aren't we doing that some? And
Yeah.
he will also get on treadmills on a incline and reverse treadmill stuff. Not
Yeah.
running, but holding on and doing a reverse thing. So yeah, I think those are the kinds of things that's why reverse stuff is in my X Factor work.
Yeah. I haven't heard I don't know anybody else that does this, and I don't know if I was doing something productive, but I work with a swim team, and if you think about the mechanics of a lot of their kicking, their kick strokes, I would have them do quite a bit of backward sprinting because they're not land animals. They're in the water. They're doing something different, and so those forward sprints have benefits,
Yes.
but mechanically, the backward sprint when I watch them go backwards and probably not with as good of the retro run heel to butt and with the reach, but more of like a low shuffle.
Yeah.
It really mimicked that long-legged flutter kick a little bit more.
Yeah, and
Uh,
of course with sprinting, we are picking up our feet, but in in swimming, they're
and
not
then
picking.
I've got a confession to make. This past October, I did one of the least cat feeding situations you could dream of. Is I got into a pedometer challenge at work, and they did it was like okay, take like 8,000 steps a day for your health, and they put a scoreboard up, and so in the month of October I took 1 million steps, and what that means is you're doing about 33,000 a day. And there was days that I'd be hurting so bad, and I would turn around and go backwards for a little while. And I can't describe the regenerative powers of backwards walking in that exhausted state. And
Uh,
I have no desire to do that challenge again ever. But it was so obvious, like like morale is down, you're tired, this joint hurts, these muscles are tired and tight from just all that just dumb, slow walking. And I would turn around, I'd walk for a minute or two, and I would just feel like a new man. It was really insightful. It was
do you
really
think it was more mental or physical?
fit. I'm gonna stand by physical. Is that
Think so?
it the pain would go away, muscles would loosen up. It was just it would buy you it was like hitting the reset button almost. It was really in an exhausted state, it was really apparent.
And this is how we learn. Like like I will probably repeat that story
Yeah,
someday.
please. Yeah.
And and you know, like if I'm not coaching right now, but I think after our last 5 minutes, we would be doing a lot more reverse stuff, um, just from us talking about it. So that's good stuff.
And then um if I've got time for
Sure.
more, how about contrast training? I picked up something from Joe DeFranco. He's strength and speed coach. Does a lot of work, or used to do a lot of work with NFL combine athletes.
Hmm.
Uh, and he would get them running faster with post-activation potentiation. Work on this really heavy sled, step away from it, breathe a little bit, run a sprint, run a 10 or 20-yard sprint. And he would do like a 9 week wave where he would time them for no contrast for their sprints for 3 weeks. He would contrast them for 3 weeks. And by the way, they would run faster weeks 3 through 6 with that contrast. And then to finish the last 3 weeks with no contrast, they would be faster than the first 3 weeks.
I
Uh,
think there's a lot to be said for that. And I think that's partly diversity in training. You know, I always say that sprinting itself is a great potentiator for the weight room, which means it will make your weight room stuff better. You will move weights better. People say, yeah, because you're warmed up. I'm like, well, it's not like warmed up like running 2 laps. It's like warmed up in the right way. It's a CNS is all lit up. It's more of a lit up than a warm up, you know, like you're on fire type of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So the questions come with potentiation of the actual sprint then. And there's several things. One thing I was going to share with you is something that Chris Corfus, I call them air lunges, where you jump up into the air in a lunge position and come back down, and then you go other leg down. So you're bouncy, big split. It's really powerful. You can go right, 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 or you go left, 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 or you go right, left, right, left, right, left. But you can do that like 3 or 4 times, and kids seem to report that they run faster. Before a race, if you're around track and field much, do you know what people do right before they get in the blocks?
Would that be the vertical jump?
Yep,
Yeah.
it's like a tuck jump
Yeah.
where the knees come all the way up to the chest, which means usually their ass is like higher than the other competitor standing.
Yeah.
Which to me is like, okay, that guy's going to win the race. Um, and oh, if fast guys are good at that, let's all get good at that. But it's also, they must do that because it's a potentiator. They feel like it is, they're lit up. So that's a cool thing. Have you ever heard of the goat drill by Cal Dietz?
I don't know that one.
Okay, the goat drill is actually in, I think in the early 60s, there was a book called discussing infinity walks. And what you do, and then Cal hijacked that and made it the goat drill. So if you can imagine a guy going in an infinity pattern, and he's kind of, not fast, he just kind of, he's moving in an infinity pattern, but his eyes have to stay attached to a focal point.
Okay.
So he's moving, but his eyes are staying the same. And then there's obviously you can go reverse, and then there's all other kinds of things like taking like a tennis ball and moving it around your waist as you're doing this, and then you can also yell out what's 3 times 9, like
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. And basically, what it is, a mental warm up. And the Infinity Walks in the early 60s, the whole idea was it was like it was a potentiator to think, to take
Yes.
a test
Yeah.
that especially for kids that had trouble, that it seemed to really help them to be able to lock in on what they're doing. Well, we want to lock in as athletes. What we have found is the goat drill is also a potentiator for speed, which is fascinating stuff. And there's other things too. Oh, I was going to tell you this. My son, in middle school PE teacher, he has seventh and eighth grade kids that are doing things like picking up 10-pound dumbbells and doing jumps
Hmm.
before they sprint.
Yeah.
And Al could be like, "What are you doing?" So I sprint faster when I do this. And if you think about baseball, where they put the donut on the bat, right?
Yeah.
Take a couple swings. They think that potentiates, makes the next thing better. So I think there's all kinds of things that we learn and are going to learn and continue, yeah, about that stuff.
I believe Charlie Francis had Ben Johnson bench press uh, moments before racing.
Yeah, I mean, um, Jimmy Rafferty at Oregon, when Chip Kelly's teams were scoring like 50 points a game, they invented the high-low in practice. They invented the 7-minute warm-up, but they also did a high CNS activity on game day, and
Okay.
they did I believe 3 reps of snatch, and he swears by it.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of our sprint-based football teams that report back to me, they try to sprint twice a week, time them, like 2 speed drills, sprint twice, do that on like Monday and Thursday. Well, the kids felt so good afterwards. I mean, you're only doing 60 seconds of work.
Yeah.
They felt so alive afterwards. They actually went to their coach and said, "Why aren't we doing this on game day?" And the coach is like, "I don't know why we don't do this on game. Let's try it." And of course, especially because it was a kid's idea, it
Yeah.
worked. I'm like, they went out and killed it, and like, so I'm kind of thinking that game day potentiation by doing an atomic speed workout might be pretty good.
I always got a big kick out of the teams that they turn their football warm-up routine into almost like a showgirls routine. It's like a stage production. And when I just kept I said we're not giving them new things to worry about on game day. We're gonna do the same warm up we do on the other days. And I was in the minority. Everybody else wanted to do a special game day, like a show. I just thought, why? What are we teaching them like a dance routine for?
Yeah, and a sprint-based football coach, what they try to do, um, we have some sprint-based football coaches that are all the way down to about a 25-minute warm-up before a game. 25. As you know, players and coaches are willing to get out there 2 hours before the game because they're excited. They well, just like Charlie Francis said about elite athletes, you have to hold them back. And so, what the sprint-based football coaches will do is, first of all, no yelling and screaming and head banging in the your locker room. You know, like you want calm, parasympathetic. They do RPR, which is diaphragmatic breathing and acupressure points. And I've been I've been an RPR guy for as long as anybody, probably since 2014. Actually, it's be activated when I learned it in 2014. Then it turned into RPR about 5 years later. But that's another thing that sprint-based football teams do, and that might be one of the reasons too why they don't have injuries. And then and then they do that RPR like in a gymnasium, like laying on the ground. And it's really quiet, and you can all you can hear is in through the nose, out through the mouth. That's all you're hearing. And they'll all be doing it probably at the same frequency. So it's kind of a cool team thing. And then if they have a game at 7 o'clock, they take the field at like 6:30, and at 6:55 there's the national anthem. And the other team's been warming up for 2 hours. They've probably logged a game or 1.5 games before they play the game. And they probably practiced twice as long as you guys did all week. And they did conditioning after practice. And they did random punishments. And oh my God. So the advantages over with a new school team over an old school team is pretty big.
Yeah. You just described a couple of years of my coaching experience there.
All of
Um,
us, all of us. That's where we are all from, coach.
yeah, we're well, you're helping kick us in the right direction for sure.
Well, at least I think what maybe what I've done is I'm kind of authentic and unapologetic in my message, and I think that a lot of people have been leaning towards this common sense type of stuff, but they're trapped in the religion. The anchor bias is so strong that 90% of all religious people are the religion of their parents. They didn't shop around. It's the same thing with us as parents or as coaches. We didn't shop around. We just kind of like went with what we knew. And then we joined the staff and like agreed with the head coach. And so I think the people who are kind of leaning into shorter, higher quality practices might be better. Not getting your team slower by grinding them might be better, might be really important that we stay fast and maybe even get faster. And when kids really look forward to practice, I think we have better practices. And I always say too that we are master reflectors, no matter how old and mature we are. It's impossible to be a good teacher with a miserable classroom, and vice versa. So you better bring it. You better bring joy, and then you better create a situation where kids can be joyful. We're not talking about, like grab ass silliness. We're talking about cutthroat fun, like cutthroat joy. I
Yeah.
just keep thinking of that poker game, like we're all friends, but I still really want to win this next hand. And that's the way we should be in training. And I don't know about you, but back when I used to gamble, I never wanted to leave that poker game. Even if I lost, I wanted to borrow money and stay. And that's the way we want athletes to be.
Yeah, I think everybody knows what sportsmanship means, but I coach, this past fall I was coaching 7-year-old girls soccer, my daughter, and I said, "Do you ladies know what gamesmanship is? Is that means as long as you're playing within the rules, you get to do all kinds of stuff. You get to challenge, you get to be like a little mean in a poker game. You get to be deceitful, and
Yeah,
like you do what you got to do to win, but you make it fun too."
you play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I just think, and when, I saw kind of a gleam in your eye when you said that. And I think that's why we get attracted to sports. The problem is that usually only comes in games. And if we could perform in practice, if we could gamify practice, then I think it just really takes off the all restraints and we can get really good.
Yeah. We did something, it never took off, but I was always I was a really big fan of it, probably because it was my idea. Is I was one summer the strength staff was involved in a football practice, and I thought it's that thing where the QBs are throwing footballs, but the guys are like half jogging over to it. And I said, like, what if let's track how many throws become receptions in practice. Because if you're only catching 17% when no one's trying to stop you, why do we think we're going to go out and win a championship?
That's
And
the
so,
gamification of practice. That
so
is it. When I say gamification, you make it more like a game. You make everything you do more significant, whether you're writing it down. My dad, as a basketball coach, uh, he wanted his players shooting 50 free throws every day. But it wasn't just 50 free throws. It was they're going to chart 50 free throws, which means
okay,
after every 10, you came and told the manager how many you made.
yeah,
And then on the locker room bulletin board that night, he posted it. So he was recording, ranking, and publishing something because if you're shooting free throws and you don't care if it goes in or not, why are you practicing?
yeah,
We just want to make things meaningful, significant. If we can measure something, gosh, let's measure it. If we can make it higher quality by allowing a little more standing around, let's do that. That when sprint-based football coaches have a performance practice, which means everything is as gamified as possible. Guys are going full speed. It looks more like football. Uh, there is more recovery in between. All those things. But when these coaches are doing these sprint-based football practices, they have to really work at having a wave-like thing in practice. Like performative 5 minutes, fundamental five. Because as you know, you cannot even a short practice of 90 minutes. You can't go 100 miles an hour for 90 minutes. It's off and on.
yeah,
And if you're playing linebacker at Maryville, you're playing 5 minutes of football in a 3-hour game. You're standing around for the other time. You're standing around. Uh, so practice should kind of reflect the choppy nature of, yeah, you're going to do, 6 to 8 plays at top speed, and then you're going to stand around for a while because you didn't get a first down. People say, well, what happens if you have a 20 play drive? Okay, you're so excited to march the ball down the field, you'll be just fine. Just let the game keep us excited. But you definitely don't need to go out and run 5 miles to prepare for a 20 play drive.
yeah, yeah. We're moving in that direction. Our our other teams. We're not a football school, but you don't know that. That's fine. Um,
Oh, okay. So I
but
didn't know that. Okay.
but the message is clear, and
Oh,
there
yeah.
are there are coaches on campus who are executing in that fashion, and it's pretty exciting.
And I think that we can, if I'm talking about sprint-based football, I think that, you can connect the dots into what basketball would look like.
Yeah,
Long practices or short? Short. Gamified or grind? Gamified. Significant or this is our job? No, we want to be significant. Quality over quantity. Joyful or this is the hell we go through to get to play in the games. I think joyful is better. And anybody that thinks that that is somehow soft or, high quality performance is hard nosed. I mean, that's if you're bringing performance level stuff to swimming, you're that's hard work.
yeah. That's for some reason, the harder you work, the more successful you are. I don't know where that comes from, but
It is absolutely like burned into our souls that the harder we work, the luckier we get, the better we are. If you're disappointed that you're not starting, you got to work harder. If you're disappointed you got beat, you work harder. Uh, and but then you have the same people say that crap and then say work smarter, quality over quantity. They'll say those things and then they slide back to their upbringing.
yeah. Well, we're breaking patterns. One practice at a time, we're breaking patterns and doing better.
Yeah, and you'll notice it. You'll know by the joy of your athletes and their performances, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Uh, and
it's all
sometimes you got to work really hard.
yeah. It's always bittersweet when an athlete tells you that the weight room was their favorite part of a season. You're like, well, that's great. I love hearing that. But did you really not like it was so bad? Practice was so bad, and uh, everything else was so dramatic on the sports side that you really liked your favorite thing is coming in and picking things up and putting them down. I mean, that's my favorite thing too, so I don't blame them. But
Yeah, and I think we should look in the mirror, when that happens. It's just like me saying I want my chemistry class to be a kid's favorite class. It's really intentional. That you have to have the intent that says, I want, I think the only way these kids are going to be really great is if they love it. Now, how am I going to get that done? So if that's your mission statement, I think uh, I think things end up pretty good.
yeah, um, I'm gonna be respectful of your time, Coach. Is there anything that I should have asked you?
No, probably not. The a lot of people want to know how they can find my stuff. My free stuff's on YouTube. Um, my I'm easy to get a hold of. I do consulting. I'm consulting, I believe, with the University of Missouri uh, football team next month. I'm heading the NFL S&C Summit, and I'm keynote speech there, which is pretty weird because I'm not an S&C guy. You know, I have none of those letters after my name. Like y'all. Um, so yeah, there's all that stuff. All my stuff that my courses that cost money is found at CoachTube, and CoachTube's just a fantastic resource. And people can find my cell phone number by just ask Chat GPT what my phone number is, and it'll tell you. Um, I've written probably 300 articles, and I have a book coming out this year.
Yeah,
So
excellent.
yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much. One thing I didn't get to squeeze in, I got distracted when you were talking earlier about just ranking and publishing, record, rank, and publish. And you said that the parents didn't seem to complain when their kid was at the bottom. I worked at the University of Missouri for a summer, and there's a different staff in now, so those guys they won't know who I am. But what we would do is we would do like 10-yard races, and it was like three or four guys at a time, and whoever won would go to the group in front of him, and we'd just go race after race after race, and your slowest, biggest guys are at the back. Well, after they did so many reps, the very fastest guys are in the front, and the very slowest guys are in the back. And somebody on the team has to be the slowest guy on the team. And they called him the algae eater. Like,
I love that. And that's how you do a gamified approach without quantifying, without timing. Racing is next best. The problem with just racing is that you as a coach are missing some really valuable data. Yeah, you may know that your fast guys are still your fast guys, but that will always be the case. You will not know if your fast guys are 1 mile an hour slower because of your dumb training. It's, like the data, speed data just tells you a lot of good stuff.
yeah. Um, extra measurements, extra data.
And we're living in a technology world now where, geez, stuff's not that expensive in order to, that OVR jump for $300, it fits in your backpack, and you can do vertical jump, you can do RSI off of that. It's pretty incredible what you can do. They have output sensors are really cool. You can wear them on your wrist, your ankle, your waist. You can measure like so many different things with these output sensors. You can do VBT too, bar speed. It's basically a sensor just, finding out how fast something's moving, whether it's your wrist, your ankle, a bar. And there's just so much. I think those sensors are like 500, 300 a piece, and it's like you don't need many of them. But all that stuff, it's almost like you can gamify anything now.
I will say I was able to see you use the OVR, the jump sensors, as well as the timing gates, and
Mhm.
did seem to work well and be pretty simple. And they also have a unit for velocity with bar tracking,
Yes, they
but
do.
but they do. Um, there's a component to. I was actually watching a little video on it this morning. There's a component to it that will show you range of motion, and so if I'm lifting and I want to go heavier and I want my numbers to look better, I could just sneak in a short rep where I have the mechanical advantage at the top. But the OVR, they have a component on it that will show you that athlete was doing full reps or not, or took a rep off basically. So I think I might end up checking out some of their gear.
Yeah, yeah, the OVR stuff just really has a great reputation right now. I've used Freelap for timing for 14 years, and I still think that's best for a track coach. But for managing big groups, I kind of like the OVR.
Yeah, had free lap before as well. Had a pretty good experience with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time
Yeah,
and
it's been fun, Mitch.
your time today, as well as all the work that you're doing for the last, well, how many years did we coach?
44 years as a coach. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. And now you're not done yet, but it's great.
Yeah, I'm coaching coaches now,
Yeah,
which indirectly affects kids, because if I get a coach to make a kid's life 10 times more joyful, uh, that works too.
yeah. And I believe it is working. So thanks for everything that you've
Cool.
done. Yeah, thank you.
Stay in touch, Mitch. Take care.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Winning Wellness Podcast. Please keep in mind that all views expressed within the show are not a reflection of any universities or organizations that I may be affiliated with. If you have any questions or suggestions for future shows, please reach out through Instagram, where I can be found with the title name of Mitch Schwartzman.